Everybody, welcome back to the Shelter Hole. We are honored to have Derek McQueen with us from Celebrate Recovery at White's Ferry Road Church here in West Monroe, Louisiana. They've been so gracious to open up the doors and allow us to come in. Derek has an amazing story, and the Shelter Hole is about bringing hope of recovery, hope from addiction, and just the hope of what Christ can do in all of our lives. And the way that we go about that even though you see us, you think our lives might be perfect, it's far from it.
Far from it.
Derek, thank you so much for coming in. Now listen, we're going to tell you a little bit of something about Derek. He is partnered with Ruck, Brian Rucker. He's going to tell you more about their ministry. They've got a podcast that's going to be coming up. We're going to be touching in on that as well. They're just getting up and getting started. Man, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I'm not going to reveal it, but one of their guests you are going to love. I know I do, man. Sorry, Chad, I did it again. My hand over my mic. I talk with my hands. If you put my hands, I'd probably just blow up. But anyway, we're here today. We're so thankful to White's Ferry Road and you guys for opening up the doors and allowing us to come in. And again, Derek, thank you so much. Welcome.
Man, John, it's an honor. I'm glad that you've asked me to be on this, but I never miss a chance to tell God's story, and just what He can do in your lives if you become willing.
Right.
So it's an honor, bud. It's an honor. I've missed you since you were down here for the retreat.
Man, I was a broken dude, man.
Yeah.
And I had been listening to the Shane podcast for probably a year and a half.
It's good guys, ain't they?
And my wife and I had pastored a church. And somehow, I'm not going to go into all that. But anyway, it was a bad breakup and just go from there. So she was the worship leader. You're talking about somebody to take you into the presence of God. And I mean, it was amazing. When I hear Jace's Missy sing, it reminds me a lot of my wife. It'll give you an idea of what she did our praise and worship. So anyway, when we left, it was hard, and we had kind of pulled back, and it had been about 11, 12 years that kind of walking in the desert. And I come to a point where I was broken, just totally broken. I wasn't drinking an alcoholic or doing drugs or anything, but spiritually, I was dead.
Huh? Yeah.
And so God miraculously did a work in my life. I was broken, found the Unashamed podcast, and what those guys done, and still do to this day. Right. So through that, I tuned into WFR, the live stream, and Al mentioned the retreat. I mean, I immediately, and if I hadn't have done it when I did, I wouldn't have got in.
It feels up for it.
It was gone.
Right.
And when I come down here and met you guys, didn't know anybody, even JJ had never met, just talked to him on the phone. And I feel like I've known you guys my entire life.
I tell you, man, it's how relationships are formed. Like we're brothers now.
Yeah.
We met one time, but stay in touch, and just through the kingdom and through what God's doing, it's amazing. And it's just like I thank God for COVID. It's such a a sad time for our country, but what God did in that, right? It developed our live stream here at WFR. This would have never happened if it wasn't for it. So man, just God's always working, even in the midst of things that seem so dark and depressing. He's on the move. I'm so grateful for it.
That is. Your testimony and what you've been through. I know there are so many people out there with the fentanyl and the drugs that are coming across our border now. And if you hear, I mean, it's the different forms it's coming in, and gummy bears and this and that and the other. I mean, it's like people don't hardly stand a chance. Yeah. But to hear your story, to hear Ruck's story, and the story of others that we've had on, and hopefully we're going to be able to hear Ruck's story, to bring hope and encouragement to families who may have, and it's hit our family. I was telling you about how it hit our family hard. I've had cousins OD, and now they're, by the grace of God, their lives are back on the straight and narrow.
Here's the thing about addiction, John. It's like anybody that's listening or tuning in now, either they themselves or they know someone directly connected to them that addiction has affected.
Isn't that crazy?
It's just how it is.
It's out of control.
It's astronomical, right? It's just, and it's getting worse. And look, I've been out of it for years now. And the stuff that they're putting on the streets now it scares me to death. And I've been through it, right?
So they say that the THC levels in marijuana alone today is so much stronger than it was whenever I was a teenager smoking a little dope. They said that if I would do it now, that I would have no idea that it would be like I was doing something totally different. The THC levels are just, I don't, but anyway,
right. Well, I mean, just for instance, they could smoke a joint before going to rehab and go to a 30-day inpatient rehab and still be testing positive for THC. Is how strong and pure the THC is in the marijuana today.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tee you up.
Okay.
Where were you raised? What was your childhood like?
So, I'm from a very small town, right? I'm from South Louisiana.
You're a true Cajun.
I'm a Cajun, right? So, I was born and raised, I wasn't born, but I was raised in Pearl River, Louisiana. It's a little town right across the Mississippi, Louisiana. I mean, there's just a river that divides us down there. Very small town. Grew up with a great family, right? So, my mom and dad, they did divorce when we were younger, but there was no real trauma that I could remember through it, right? They were still heavily involved in our life. I mean, every school event, every school function, sporting event, I mean, my entire family was there to support me and be there for me and my younger brother. I remember my mom would work graveyard shifts, but she would make sure she'd be up to get us on and off that bus, like make sure that we were cared for. Just had a great childhood. My Pawpaw Sam, who's no longer with us, was a real influential person in my life, man. He taught us how to work. He made it fun. He taught me how to fish. It was a big passion of mine, especially down south, We love our fishing. And taught me how to pitch baseball. And that was my passion growing up. I really wasn't into hunting much. You get up here around these duck boys and stuff like that. That's what everybody does. I wasn't much of a hunter, John, but I tell you what, I could catch fish with the best of them. And that's what we did growing up, man. It was my grandma and grandpa actually had this fish house. And it was so cool, man. My grandpa was probably the fastest catfish skinner you would ever see. And I put him up against everybody. So we had this little fish house. And it was cool. It was called the Triple X. I don't know why it was that name. I think it has nothing to do with what you're thinking, right?
Right.
But it was called the Triple X, man. And it was a little fish house, and you could come and he had a live tank in the back, and where live catfish would come in, and the customers could actually go in there. They could pick their live catfish. You'd skin it fresh for them, fry it up, and they'd have that same catfish served to them that night. It's a pretty neat little thing. Yeah.
That's a true catfish house.
I'm telling you, they don't make them like that no more.
No.
And I grew up swimming in that thing, I was swimming in the live tank back there, and I grew up thinking I was the boss of that restaurant. So the restaurant business was instilled in me at a young age, and I just loved it. But like I said, man, sports was my passion. Sports, I mean, from the time I was in T-ball on up, playing through football and stuff, I just had a passion for football and baseball. And it took me to a lot of places, I excelled in school growing up. I don't know, I guess it was just my grandpa, my mom, everybody kind of instilled in me, man, to just do good, give it your best.
Now, did your mom or your grandparents, were they godly people, church-going people when you
They were. So my church, all right, so I grew up in Catholicism, okay, and so we'd go to church, but looking back, man, it was just more like I wasn't really in it as a child I was just going with my family. Mm-hmm. And by the time I got into high school, it was we kind of moved on to different things and stuff like that. Always believed in Jesus as a child growing up. Grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, everyone, But down south, and I don't speak for everybody down there, but I just know in my community and stuff, it's a lot different than what I've experienced up here. There's a church on every corner. Jesus is talked about everywhere. It's not like that down there. You talk about crawfish, Bud Light, fishing, hunting, stuff like that. It's more of the culture down there, the occasions and stuff like that. So, but we were in church. Man, I just don't remember much about it, John. I remember going CCD and dressing up, kneeling, standing. I mean, that's it. There was really nothing impactful. I just knew that they loved Jesus, and I was supposed to love Jesus. which I'll kind of allude to that, going forward. But it wasn't a lifestyle, I guess you could say there. It was going to church. There was no relationship with Jesus at my younger age. So that was the missing piece. But overall, the family dynamic, man, was great. It was great. I had a loving, and still to this day, my dad, my mom, everybody, grandma, grandpa. It's funny, I'm just actually getting back from a trip. I was down south this past weekend visiting family, and the reason I was down there is because my cousin wanted to get baptized and wanted me to be a part of it and do it. So,
That's
man,
awesome.
it was truly amazing.
That is awesome.
Truly amazing. But childhood was great, man. I grew up, it was, like I consider myself a country boy, always on the river. If I wasn't out there in the boat with my grandpa, I was on the ball field. And if I wasn't on the ball field, it was because I was in school or had stuff like that to do. So really loved my childhood growing up, man. Can't blame anything of what I'm about to share on my childhood, that's for sure.
So when you were growing up as kids, being in the southern coal fields of West Virginia in the mid 80s, or early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Economy was terrible. There wasn't a whole lot up there. So, as when we graduated high school, you basically had three options. I talked to Randy about this yesterday.
Yeah.
You had three options. You went to, most everybody went to South Carolina, North Carolina. You went to college or you went to the military. Mm-hmm. What was it like in the bio? When you were growing up, were you looking for a way out, or was it, did you love the Cajun way of life and want to try to make a living off of the swamps, or, how was, the water, and what was that like for
John,
you?
I thought I would never leave the place. I really did. Looking back, people would always say you got to get out to a small town. You got to leave it. But man, I loved it. I loved being on the water. That's really what I miss. I could tell people I love it here in West Monroe, and I have found a forever family. But the only thing I do miss is that saltwater fishing. I've worked on the shrimp boats, crab boats, stuff like that. But I always did want something better. So going into high school, like I said, big sports. So going into high school, man, I was at kind of the peak there. Became a varsity starting quarterback as a freshman at 14 years old. Starting on baseball, starting pitcher, varsity freshman year. So up to this point, I've never, it was all school, family. I've never experienced anything outside of that. But you get into high school, it starts to change.
Yeah, it
You
changed.
become the starting quarterback of the varsity football team at 14 years old. You're going to get introduced to another way of life, and that's kind of what happened to me. So I was always wanting to go somewhere, but of course parties started slipping in. I remember I got drunk first time 14 years old. I was a late bloomer these days. You're hearing us kids start at super young ages, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of my peers did, but I didn't. I was kind of sheltered to that. I wanted to be good, and I believed in being good at that time. So, but man, when I got 14, I got drunk on a 6-pack of Smirnoff. I was dancing on a pool table, and that's kind of where it started. But it was all innocent fun, Down south, drinking and that kind of culture, partying is a way of life. You got Mardi Gras. There's something to do Monday through Sunday out there where I'm from. There's a bar on every corner.
Right.
It's just kind of a lifestyle, and it's not even looked upon any different. It's kind of the way of life. So at that time, I didn't think anything of it. I was just having a good time with friends, and I was able to maintain. Look, through high school, I maintained a 4.2 GPA.
Good, nice.
Yeah, I was in honor society, beta club, all that stuff on the math. But I had offers from Yale, Columbia, and Brown when I was sitting there before my graduation, and could have went up north. They were looking at me to maybe come play some football and baseball for them, but due to my ACT score and stuff, they were sending me offers and stuff like that. So I definitely thought there was a time, but just something changed through them high school years. And looking back now, it was just kind of easily getting comfortable with substances. It started with alcohol. By the time I'm in sophomore year in the summer, only time you can do stuff when you play sports is in the summer because you get drug tested.
Yeah.
So I started smoking some weed. which still down south, I mean, that's just innocent fun, you know, you're just out there smoking a joint here and there, and didn't think nothing of it. But then I became pretty popular, and you know, started hosting a lot of parties. We had a camp out in the river, and I mean, we started getting into some innocent fun. And before I knew it, by the time junior year, you know, I got introduced to ecstasy, you know, and tried that a little bit. But I could really say, man, you know, up to that point in my life, I thought everything was great. You know, by the world standards, everything was, I had a great family. I never, you know, my dad, my mom were divorced, but they were always there. My dad worked at the oil refinery, and, you know, mom was doing great, working in the school system. My grandparents were always there. I mean, I could relate to Adam and Eve, you know. Make fun of them, why'd you eat the apple? Don't we all eat the apple? And I guess that's kind of where I was, John. And man, after my graduation is when it took a turn for the worst. It really did. You know, I was able to maintain up to that point my minimal drug use. You know, it was real light. It was more of kind of a social, I don't even like to use that word because I don't believe in it, but
Right.
a social user at the time, just at parties, stuff like that. But I tell you, man, it all changed one day. All changed one day riding with my best friend. We were going fishing in this pond. I remember just riding up in the back of the truck, and we having a good time. We're probably drinking and stuff like that. And I happened to look over into the cab of the truck, and there was just this white line he kind of had fixed out. He wasn't even like offering it to me or anything like that, and he snorted it, you know. And my curiosity, you know, I've done dipped and dabbed, man. I just graduated second in my class, like it's time to celebrate. But little did I know the addictive power of cocaine. And man, I tell you, that's when my life really started to go downhill. I become an addict at that point. It was the summer between my graduation and rolling into the University of Louisiana Lafayette.
So when you were, during this time, did your parents or your mom or your grandfather, you know, were there friends, anybody you were around, did anybody come say, hey, man, we're seeing something different about you. We're worried about what's going on. They didn't have any idea.
No idea.
Wow.
No idea. And I was like, but I was still at the early parts of addiction. You know, addiction has its different levels where it takes over, and you care less what people think. At this point, I did. You know, I was trying to put on that mask. So I made sure that, you know, I'd stay out a couple weeks at a time, but I wouldn't go in front of my mom or any of them while I was high. You know, I made sure when I come home, I was right. But I'm sure looking back, I mean, I'm sure they started to know a difference. I mean,
Right.
They just never, they didn't want to believe it. I mean, what parent wants to believe that your child has done so great and has come up through school and had all these offers and everything going for him and playing sports, they could even, I mean, think about being addicted to drugs.
Yeah, that was,
you know,
the furthest thing from their mind.
That furthest thing, didn't want to believe it, you know. But eventually it takes over, right? And that's what happened to me. So I go into my first, I mean, remember, I've never been in trouble up to this point. I've never been in detention, never been suspended. I mean, I cared about my school. I mean, I wanted to go places. So first semester at UL, I'm trying to, you know, that summer was rough for me. When you're on a drug like cocaine, it's hard to beat that. I mean, that's addictive, and you just want it. It's a stimulant. The come down, I mean, it starts to take control of your life. So I was able to kind of set it down for a couple weeks before college, before entering UL. But man, University of Louisiana Lafayette, that is a party school too. I mean, you're in the heart of Cajun country. You're in the heart of the partying, stuff like that. So man, I've done opened that door. And once that door is open, man, it just kind of takes over. So I remember, man, I flunked first semester, flunked a class, ended up just not showing up no more to my English class. I mean, this is a guy that cared about his school up to this point. I just didn't care, man. I wanted to party. Started using again, having buddies come up from Pearl River with cocaine. It turned bad. It turned bad, and I ended up not even going back. So we have in college, you have winter break.
Right.
And I just remember, man, I just started using real bad again in that month. And I didn't even go. I had a girlfriend at the time, and I went and stayed at her house, and it's one of the first times where I know that I'm about to have to come clean to my parents that I'm addicted to cocaine, because they're thinking I'm off at University of Louisiana Lafayette, and I'm just sitting there. I remember just staring at the ceiling like, what am I going to do? But school wasn't important at that time. It was like, how can I stay here and still get high? You know, it's kind of just the mindset that
Right.
you go from.
You're just thinking about your next fix.
Next fix, always next fix. So of course, UL Lafayette, it's over with, man. All them hours of hard work. You know, I was going to try to eventually walk on the baseball team there. Got a great baseball program. You know, graduate and get something in either physical education, be a teacher, something like that. Man, I didn't care no more. That quick. You know, that quick, my life changed from that one decision. And here I was, man. I was flunked out of college at 18 years old, wondering what I was going to do. And so I did. I went to my parents. I went to my mom and them, and kind of told them. And that's when she brought, man, I'll just never forget that. My mom's look. Well, she kind of knew. She kind of knew what was going on with me at that time. It just broke her heart. Broke her heart. So there it was, man. That's the first time I really had to come clean and know that drugs were taking over my life, right?
Was there a cry inside of you, or was there a cry for help that you weren't expressing, or were you expressing the cry for help at that time, or did you even really realize you needed help at that time?
No, I was being selfish. I was still being selfish. Like,
so in your mind, you didn't have a problem, really.
no.
You just really didn't want to go to school. You lost interest in it. You know, partying's not it's not the issue. I just really don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Right. So I was like, well, it's on to the next thing, you know. Well, at that time, you know, so my mom, very receptive, believe it or not. Like, there were some stipulations, of course. So I'm moving back in home. And at this time, my grandma and grandpa, they had, and we worked through high school, it was Wishbones. It was a family restaurant. They had the fish house, like I talked about.
Right.
So then this was a little chicken place, man. We had like fried seafood, burgers, po' boys, all that good stuff. And they had that from like 95 all the way through high school. We'd work there, me and my cousins, brother, my younger brother, we'd work there. And so it was a little spot where they wanted to retire. So they come to my mom and they said, well, we want y'all to take over. Like, who, me and Derek? Like, yeah. So here I am, now 19 years old, never addressed this cocaine addiction, right? I'm not using cocaine no more, but I'm drinking. Drinking's always been a part. It's just a part of life down there. So I was just drinking, and they want us to take over the restaurant. So of course I'm all for it. You know, 19 years old, about to become a part owner of a restaurant, you know, here's a second chance. So that all was, you know, I felt like, man, life's starting to take off again. So I did that. We jumped in the restaurant business, and I do want to say that working with your family is pretty tough. So
I
don't ever want to, recommend that. But man, so that kind of took off, and I was able to kind of maintain for about a year in my life there. You know, just drinking, and I had kind of the business keeping me occupied. I kind of did away with the friends that were using hard drugs at the time and stuff like that. So I mean, I was able to kind of maintain it. And I say maintain because there was never a point in my life up to coming up here that I was sober. I think maybe 5 days of sobriety, true sobriety of any mind-altering substance was probably all I could obtain from the age of, 18 years old on to 32. So we were maintaining, but then I tell you what, it all changed again for me, man. And you talk about the opioid pandemic that we have going on. It started with me at a party. And I thought, man, I'm good, right? We all say this. I'm good, man. I ain't used cocaine in a year. At a party, and someone had a little Lortab, just a little pain pill, and offered it to me. I was like, man, what's that going to hurt? I'm obviously okay. And I took that, man, and it was on from there, right? And when I took that pill, I felt like I could take over the world. I could come out my shell. I could talk to anybody. I could be in front of people. Like, when you're on cocaine, you can't you can't interact with your family or anybody. You're out there. You could tell when somebody's on a stimulant like that. But with a pain pill, I could kind of be a chameleon. I could kind of fall in between the cracks and be that person I always wanted to be, because, you know, I was shy a lot of times growing up. You put a Lortab in my hand and I could talk. I could, you know, be funny. Had girls laughing at me, you know, that kind of thing. So it kind of, at the time, was thinking, oh man, this is what I've been waiting on forever. You know, and that opioid, that little small pill, turned into a lot more, because you can't just take one. You know, then you got to take two. Before I know it, I was taking 12 a day.
Wow.
You know, that quick. 12 a day. Still nobody knew. Was able to put on that mask and go through everyday life with just, they're thinking, oh, Derek's good, he's running a restaurant, stuff like that, man. And I mean, it just got bad. So when 12 a day don't work, you're gonna obviously have to go to something else. Which, I mean, Roxy's, and the list goes on. Oxys, Roxy's, I mean, all them pain pills that are pretty much.
There wasn't nothing off the table at that point.
Nothing. No. You put it in front of me. I mean, we call it a morphine in addiction, not the pill. Like whatever it is, we fiend for more. And that's kind of where and I just learned to adapt with that at that time. You know? It was also around this time, I guess I'm probably in my early 20s now. I found out that a lot of my family members on my dad's side were scientists. Not like, you know, what we learned in school, though. They were more like the Breaking Bad. So I also mixed in that, right? So methamphetamines become, from this point on, probably all the way up, big part of the in and out story of my life. And I become addicted to meth and pain pills kind of at the same time. So I was off and running at that time. You know, DWI started to come into my life. Getting arrested for, you know, I become very violent. You know, I got arrested for smashing in an ex-girlfriend's car, window, stuff like that. I mean, just kind of taking over, man. Drugs began to really take over my life, and somehow I was able to maintain. I don't know, at the beginning. Right at this time, I've got a house on the water in Bay St. Louis. You know, got a nice truck, got a good job. Totally empty on the inside because drugs have just started to completely consume my life. And, you know, it always gets worse. You know, so I'm engaged to a young lady at this time, first engagement. She happens to be addicted to pain pills too. I won't name any names, you know, it's not important. But she's addicted probably because of me, you know, looking back. You know, it's like once you start getting into the addiction and drugs, man, everybody that you come in contact with, you look back and like, you've impacted their life in a negative way. And that's exactly what happened with my first fiance. Is, you know, she was addicted to pain pills and stuff. I started drinking and the meth come in. She was against the meth. It was just chaotic. So then she starts talking to a coworker, right, as we're engaged, and they start dating. I start blaming everybody instead of looking in the mirror, that kind of thing, right, thinking, you know, it's their fault and everything like that, man. And that's when I met one of the biggest demons in the devil's arsenal, and that's IV drug use.
Wow.
In my life. Straight down.
So at this point, I have a question for you. So we've all heard the old saying, you're trying to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Mm-hmm. Or if you're on top of a table trying to pull somebody up to you, it's easier for them to pull you off.
Easy.
So a lot of, in your, I'm not going to say this like I know, I'm asking, in what you and Ruck deal with here, mm-hmm. and what you see, and what you've seen in your life. Just like, because the same thing happened in Adam Brown's book that the Navy SEAL that I just read. We won't go into that. But your girlfriend, she loves you, or your fiance, she loves you. Hey, Derek's doing this. I want to make him happy. How much of that plays into people who, yours was a progressive thing over time, you know, hanging out with your buddies, not really realizing, and it creeps into your life, next thing you know, you're just buried.
Yeah, full-fledged.
But with somebody like this young lady in your life who was, probably didn't know much, hadn't really done drugs or whatever through her life. I don't know what her background was. Let's say hypothetically, she hadn't. But then she comes in, I want to make Derek happy. He's doing it. I'm going to be part of it too. The next thing you know, her life is destroyed. How many people do you all see that that's their case, that they end up being addicted because of someone that they love that they didn't realize was in that state?
Oh, it's a high number. Oh, it's up there. I mean, pretty much it's close to 90%, 100%,
Really?
right? Because that's how are we introduced? It's through someone that we feel comfortable enough to be around that introduces it to us. And it's always reverted from some type of trauma, whether it's trauma from our childhood that we don't even realize that we had, whether it's trauma that we're not a self-worth, right? Because with me, man, now I can fit in. Right? So, I mean, yeah, somebody that I knew, somebody that I was close to was the gateway for that, but in essence, I would have found it. You know what I mean? Like, it was just that interest. But yeah, it's always somebody that's very close to them.
So you pick back up. I just wanted to interject. I wanted people to kind of get.
Yeah, always. It's always reverted. Trauma's big. And we don't even realize there's so many different levels of trauma, John, that I believe a lot of people are going through this life. They might not have an addiction problem, but they're having issues, and it can revert it back to some kind of trauma they might not even realize that they had. And that's what's the blessing about CR and what we do is working through that trauma, man. It's so freeing. It is so freeing, which we're going to touch base on that.
Keep going. Sure. I didn't mean to get you off track.
No, I love it. I love it. So at this point, I'm broken engagement, right? Now I'm an IV drug user. And what comes with that is pain pills ain't going to work no more. That's when I get addicted to heroin. So 24 years old, I am now instead of someone who just graduated from ULL or even Columbia or Brown, which I had offers, I'm now a broken engaged heroin and meth addict, IV drug user.
Wow.
24 years old. And so that's where we're at. Somehow, look, I don't know, John. She had to know, and I've kind of talked to her a little bit about this, but I'm still trying to run a business this way. Now, it's getting a little shaky, I'm showing up late and stuff like that, but once again, my mom is one of those who loves me, and you'll hear me, man. The only reason I'm alive today is because I have a praying mama, and that's very true. So I'm sure she still didn't want to believe it, and never in a million years would she think I'd go to this extreme. But man, that's just how powerful this addiction is. You're thinking that, you just come out of a broken engagement that's enough to make you quit, but no, it's just going to make you want more. All right, so I go off from that, man, and I get with my high school sweetheart. And, one we went to prom with and stuff, and she brings this gorgeous little angel with her, a little 4-year-old Bailey. And, I'm thinking that's enough to stop, but I couldn't stop. And this is when I really found out how powerful my addiction had gotten. You still really don't know. You still say, man, I'm still all right. I'm still able to go to work, still able to function a little bit. That's what we function and act, no such thing. But I was able to kind of blend in, man. The people that knew was, the people that did it with me, and I was able to kind of hide it. So I get in this relationship with Crystal, and it's not just her. You know what I'm saying? It's she's got a precious child with her, and I'm thinking that I maybe can quit, man. So it was my birthday one year, and she pays for a trip, man. She says, I'm taking you up to the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. I'm going to buy a cabin up there for us, and we're going to celebrate your birthday. I'm like, yeah. That sounds great. But then I'm thinking right before the trip, what am I going to do? Right? When you're a heroin addict, you can't just go 3 days without heroin. You're going to start to really feel the effects pretty quick, right? So
is everybody around you?
Everybody around you, right? And this is the first time that I go up there, and we think we have enough. We always do as addicts. We'll prepare the trip. We'll put all our stuff together. If you ever struggle with addiction, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Thinking that you have exactly enough what you need for the trip. So this is a 14-hour drive that we're embarking on. So I need to make sure I do. We get on day 2 and I'm out. Right? That's just how powerful it is. You just thinking you have enough. And she's starting, and up to this point, she's thinking I maybe take a few pain pills from time to time. And I've told her, but it's nothing serious, nothing you have to worry about. I'm just real good at being a chameleon. I was real good at putting on that mask. A lot of us addicts are. right? We could put on that mask, we could tell you one thing and have you, believe in something completely different, and I become real good at that. But when I got up there and about day 2, day 3, I was puking and using the restroom all over myself, and so I had to come clean the second time in my life. And I remember, man, here's another one, right? I had the same thing with Mom. Here I am with Crystal, who had been my high school sweetheart, and telling her that I'm addicted to heroin and that I'm not going to make the rest of the trip.
14 miles from home.
14 hours, right?
Or 14 hours.
14
Oh,
hours, yeah. So so I conned her into driving and meeting my little brother, Colby, who is I'm going to talk about him a lot because that's my dude. I love him to death, but we come up using again. He's another one I got on drugs. I'm just going to say it. It's a resentment of mine that I have towards myself as I kind of introduced him to that, man, and it's something I've had to live with, which he's doing good now, but conned her into meet my brother halfway. Now, she paid for this trip, right? Paid for us to go to this nice cabin and everything. And my gratitude to show her is, hey, we need to take the last day of the trip and go meet my brother so I can get my fix. Just how sickening it is. And she did it. So much she loved me. I just found out her, a boyfriend is who's soon to be husband is addicted to heroin, and I'm now driving him 7 hours, 14 both ways, right? Because we got to come back. We got people with us to get a fix, to get through. And I said, whoa, this stuff's pretty serious. This stuff's real serious. So of course I did like I'm talking to you. I sat her down and I said, Crystal, whatever I need to do when I get back, I will do it. Whether it's rehab, you name it, I'm doing it. And she believed me, and she took me on down there, and I tried that, John. I did when we got back. My mom knew, of course, that was part of it. I had to come through. Hey, Mom, guess what? Here's another thing coming up. Seeing her heart break again, and I did. I promised them that, and I tried. I did. In the next 3 or so years of my life, I was able to do Derek's sobriety program, is what I like to refer to it as. So what that looked like is I come home, I got off, a detox cold turkey off of and she was right there by my side. There was a lot of 7 days up all night, puking, all that comes with the opioid withdrawal. And I was able to kind of crack that for a little bit. But then Derek wanted to up I felt like I needed to up my sobriety program, so I started incorporating Suboxone. Then I started incorporating whiskey. I mean, addiction I thought I was doing well. So this was my sobriety program for 3 years. I would wake up and I would take a half of Suboxone. Then I would, about lunchtime at work, I would fix my first, now I'm back at the restaurant, right? I'd fix my 32-ounce, probably half full of whiskey, was topped off with Sprite, and that kind of get me through the day. When I clock off of work, I'd take my other half of Suboxone, I'd pick up a 6-pack of Bud Light and another half pint of whiskey just to get me through the rest of the day.
Wow.
While I worked at the house and stuff. And it was okay. I mean, my mom, everybody knew. Crystal knew. We're living together. We're actually married through this time. We get married. And that was for 3 years. That was my sobriety time up to, that was my sober program.
Wow.
So that was every day. Every day was that I was putting that into my body. But for the world, like down there, like you don't hear Jesus anywhere in this. You don't hear church, right? This is no part of my life up to this point. And so I went on like that, man, and you think you're happy, right? Here I am. I still got the house on the water. I got a beautiful wife. I got a little step girl that's just awesome. Got a nice truck. I'm still running a restaurant, man. What more can I want? But that's what addiction does, right? Like that's what the world does. Like we can have all that stuff, all those material things, and it never satisfies you.
Yeah, it'll still be empty and hollow.
Empty. And that eventually, as an addict, as a drug addict, eventually that emptiness is going to go right back into your addiction, which did in 2016. 2016 is when my journey to rock bottom kind of set in, right? So here I am. You know the story now with Crystal. You know that she has a daughter, and I'm telling you, on her vows, on her wedding day, I promised that little girl that I was going to be her daddy for the rest of her life. She's, her dad was in prison, stuff like that, man. And I told her, and here I am, already done used drugs and been drinking, stuff like that. Well, crystal meth comes back into my life, and through an acquaintance of mine, it's just there. And when you're not filling that hole with Jesus, you're very open to taking that back in. I mean, I didn't even hesitate, John. Not even thinking about all the stuff that I put them through, and about we're going 3 years of me off the heroin, the hard drugs, that's what we like to call them. I didn't even think twice, and did it. And once you do it, I can hide it. That's what I started to do. Started to hide it. And my wife had no idea for about, I guess I was in this for 2 months.
Wow.
What did start happening, and this is kind of another thing, is my relationship at work with my mom really, it started to separate. Not because of anything she was doing, because her boy was back on meth and thought he was something or somebody and thought he was entitled, like we get, entitled to more. And
did she see anything, or was she suspicious
she
at that time?
started to get, she had to be, yeah. But we were working, like when you own a restaurant, you're working all day, every day, and we were kind of short help at the time. We were getting worn out, and I felt like I was owed more. Really, I just needed to support my habit, right? Felt like I was owed more, needed more, just very disrespectful. And it come to a wedge one day, and I kind of want to share on this just to kind of, it's hard for me to, but just how powerful this becomes. I spoke about my mom a lot. I'm a mama's boy. I am. I love my mom, and she's my rock, So we get into an argument. I hadn't been paid and stuff like that. So I decided I ain't coming into work. And so I'm sitting there at my grandma's house, which is down the road from her little restaurant. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get what's mine. So I walk up to that restaurant, and my mom's there by herself. I'm supposed to be there. And she's running around, and she's got potatoes on, cooking for potatoes, something I'm supposed to be doing, right? I do all the prep work. Potatoes going, stuff everywhere, all over the restaurant, stuff like that. And I go in there with an attitude, right? And I said, I'm going to get what's mine. I'm going to empty that register. So in essence, now I'm coming to commit a crime. I'm going to drain the register at her restaurant. And I do. And as I'm going, she grabs me by my shirt, and I take and body slam my mom on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm just dragging her like she's, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just how sick it becomes. I take the money out the drawer. I take the garbage cans. I empty them all over the back of the restaurant. I flip the pot of potatoes she just worked so hard on. And that was my exit from the family restaurant. That's just, look, every time, and I've made my amends on that, but still, like, just seeing her face and knowing how hard she works, knowing that's how I treat her in that moment, just showed how sick I was. Just how sick I was.
And it is an illness.
Man, it's dark. It's dark. Meth addiction's dark. Very dark stuff. It's one of the enemy. I swear, it's just a straight spiritual addiction, and it ain't a good one. The stuff you see, the stuff you hear, the stuff you think, it's so dark. And it just that's how I went out of the restaurant. So me and Crystal, she still don't know. Man, I tell you, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I was able to hide this. So now I'm looking for work, right? And I've done the restaurant now for about 10 years, and it's been and I've been out of work for the first time. So now I'm looking, we're odds and ends. Well, this big contract, they had a flood in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 2016. And they had a lot of contracting going on out there. So we're living in Bay St. Louis at the time, and I get on with this company to start doing these contracts. We're doing a sheltered homes program. So we're just going in there trying to help these people get back into their homes as quick as possible. Framing up a bathroom for them, putting them in a sink, running water, that kind of thing. So we go up there, and I'm kind of dipping and dabbing back in the meth. But when you're driving from Bay St. Louis to Baton Rouge every day, working 14-hour shifts, I mean, you pretty much now, with meth's on the table, I'm using that every day to stay awake. So I'm I'm in the mix of I'm making a lot of money at the time too. Like it's a big contract, stuff like that. A lot of responsibility, but here it is. I'm always turning to what I know, and that's drugs. So I continue to use meth to get through. So I'm back full-blown meth addiction after 3.5, 4 years. Here I am again, just trying to get by. And I'm we're always trying to justify it, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Is like, I got to have it, right? I got to work, provide for my family. I got to have this to stay awake. I'm driving back home so I can see them for a minute, 3 hours a day. So I get back on the meth. We worked this for about 3 or 4 months, and things are going well, even though I'm not home a lot. And then that's when my other addiction comes back in, heroin. And I figured like I needed it, and that's the first time I remember overdosing. Remember sitting there, and if it weren't for my brother knowing exactly what to do at that time, I'd be dead right now. I was out for over 5 minutes. I woke up on a gurney. Because anybody that's done heroin, you quit, you can't just go back to that same amount. And I remember doing that and waking up in the ambulance. That's the first time. So I remember, I was like, well, I guess I need to come clean again. So I remember this, man. I had everything packed up to leave Baton Rouge. At that time, we were kind of staying a couple of nights, and I had everything packed up. Brought everything. I said, I'm going home, and I'm coming clean to Crystal again. I don't want to hide this from her. So I had all my stuff. This drug addicts to kind of keep us in a pouch. And I remember I went home, and when you stay up for 5, 6 days, that's kind of with the stuff that you're on. When you stay up that long, you crash. And that's kind of was my schedule. You just crash. So I remember waking up to bags packed, man. I left my bag out, and Crystal didn't find it. A 7-year-old at the time found it. Right? Found my stuff. So I woke up to bag packed, and I remember her saying, she still gave me an ultimatum. She said, you go to rehab, or me and her are leaving, and I'm filing for divorce. And I'll never forget, here's another look, man, on that little girl's face, like, another man has let me down. Still didn't choose it right, John. I said, you know what, I got a business to run, I'm going back out there. Looking back, I just wanted to keep getting high. Keep getting high, man, and it just consumed me. Of course, she held true, filed for divorce, John, and the next 3 years of my life were the darkest years of my life. I went on, man, I OD'd 4 or 5 times. I didn't work no more. I was living to die, right? I was pretty much waking up every day after Crystal divorced me. I was waking up every day just wanting it to end, Began stealing. I mean, we'd steal cars off the side of the interstate. We'd go into these big plants in New Orleans and stuff I never dreamed about doing. We begin doing to support my habit. Right, going to New Orleans every day to get my fix. I mean, just literally become what we like to call a junkie. Living to die. OD several times. Began selling. I've never sold drugs before. Began selling drugs. That's like the one night, we're out there in my hometown, and we're selling some meth, and I've had guns pulled on me before, John, but this night was different. So we're out there and we're making a drop, and my car door opens, right? And I'm looking, what's up, bro? I'm staring down the barrel of a 9mm. Me still, I'm not thinking anything. I've had guns pulled on me before, nobody ever gonna pull the trigger. So I'm just trying to kind of talk my way out of it at the time. I go to pull off and he fires. He unloads the clip on the car. So I'm going down the road. We got the girl that tried to set us up. I got her locked in the back seat at this point. They're in behind us now chasing. I look down, I've been shot in the arm, just missed my heart. Right, so she's all crying in the back. I get up to about 60 miles an hour and really intending to do more to her. Thank God, this is a God moment looking back, right? She goes to kind of climb up and opens the door to the car, and I push her out doing 60, to try to getting away from them. They're chasing us, they stop. So, man, I should have lost my life there. Countless numbers of times. Looking back, John, I shouldn't be here talking to you. Shot, OD'd, that I can remember 5 times. broken engagement, divorced, right? Nobody in my family wants me. I mean, I can't, at this point in my life, I can't step foot on my mom's property. My dad don't want nothing to do with me. I lost my grandpa and my grandma. They died. Wasn't there for them because of my addiction. Every high school childhood friend, they see Derek, they don't want nothing to do with me. They love me, right? They love me, but they don't want me around. But nothing was breaking. You know, going through all that, getting shot and ODing and ruined relationships, none of that was my rock bottom. You know what that was? My brother gets arrested, and that's I feel like I need to protect him. He's my guy. He gets arrested, and I remember, like, that's just my ride or die right there. And I remember stopping in a mirror and looking at myself and thinking, who are you? Dude, you have nothing. You're lost. You have nobody. It was just, I just remembered that was my rock bottom. It was like, it wasn't getting shot. It wasn't the stuff I was involved with. It wasn't ODing and waking up on a gurney or body slamming my mom or the look in Crystal's eyes, the look in Bailey's eyes, it was the look in the mirror, and actually for 1 second, I know it was God stopping me right there in my tracks to see what I had become. And I'm telling you, it was just, it's a man I never want to see again. I never want to see again. And that was when it kind of brought me to my knees. And I remember calling my mom. I had a cousin that would always come in, and he would talk about this place in Monroe called Pecan Haven. And my cousin worked there, his mom. And she was a counselor. She was a tech up there, Betty. And he didn't know it, but he was planting a seed at the time. And I remember calling my mom and said, Mom, I need help. He said, well, if you need help, you could come on and stay at the house till we can get you in there. So she let me back in, and I remember making that phone call to Betty, and that's when my life began to change, man. It was, I didn't know what I was in for. I was always scared. Look, you try to act all tough and hard on the streets, but I believe looking back, man, I was just always scared to ask for help. Scared to think, I didn't even know there was help, to be honest with you, John. Down south, I didn't know there was a way, right? You never heard about Jesus, any of that. I mean, I almost become agnostic through my addiction. You know, I believed in God, but I believed he had no power over my life. And, man, it all changed that day I made that phone call. I didn't know what was about to happen, but I just said, you know what, whatever is going to happen, let's do it.
When you looked in the mirror that day, you asked yourself, who are you? Did you feel anything?
I did, man. I was broken. I looked at an empty body, soulless, evil.
Was there a pull either way? I mean, could you feel a tug somewhere? I mean, I just think it's amazing that was when you finally saw yourself, when you were able to see yourself, what you had become, and you it's like you woke up. And
I did. It's like the scales were removed at that. Like, because look, you walk past mirrors all the time. But it was something about this. I guess it was my brother, and he was my guy. Like, that's just, I didn't make sure he was okay. He got arrested. And I didn't have nobody, you know, and it's just, you go so 90 to nothing in addiction, and it's just up for 7 days, up for 10 days. It's just sickening. But I tell you, he stopped me in my tracks that day, and I just remember looking at it. It almost was scary at the man I seen looking back at me. Because I knew that man, there wasn't nothing he wouldn't do at that point. Like, he was trying to get killed. And I just remember, like, what happened? And I started thinking about my childhood. I started thinking about where I was in high school. It was like, what happened to you? And here we are, 14 years later, you know, 32 years old. John, I'm thankful. I'm so thankful for that now. You know, because looking back, man, if I wouldn't have went through all that, would I ever found the Savior? Would I ever thought I needed a Savior, right? I always think that, like, man, like,
that's a good point.
In the midst of all that, like, God was, I never blame him for it, but he had kept me alive. He was my guardian angel. He's going to use this somehow for his glory. I see it now. But looking back, there's no way I should be here, right? Through all that. Ain't no way. But God. I didn't know that at the time. Like I didn't know what was about to transpire. So what happened, like I go to this detox center, and I remember waking up the first day without heroin or meth, and it was like, man, okay, I'm really wanting to do this. And that was the key, right? If you don't want it, if you're trying to do it for somebody else, if you're trying to do it for a loved one, it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. You don't have that power.
Salvation's the same way. You go to church to get saved for somebody else.
It ain't gonna work.
It ain't gonna help.
No, it's about, you got to do it for yourself.
Exactly.
Like that's got to be the core. Now, of course, attached to that, of course, is I want to do it for my mom and stuff. But that's not, like I had to hit that breaking point. Like I ain't going back. Well, I remember sitting at the first little detox center, man, and I tell you, this was life changing. I know who Jesus was. I've heard the name, right? We said some Hail Marys way back in CCD. I don't remember any. I couldn't quote you John 3:16 at this point. I remember the first time in Awaken, I picked up the book. We were studying the book of Acts, and I was looking for Acts, A-X-E. I'm like, I don't know, where you find this? You know, thinking Job was a book on how to find a job. You know, I had no idea anything. But I tell you, I'm so thankful for that too, because God was able to get into my heart that way, and He did. He did through a testimony, right? So I'm just sitting there. I was very good at math. Remember, GPA at one point was pretty high, and I loved math. So I'm sitting there, man. I don't know what to. I'm ready to be sober, and I'm ready to stay sober, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes. So I'm sitting there, and every day in detox for them 7 days, we had somebody come in and share a testimony. So knowing me, I'm looking for the common denominator. I'm like, there's got to be something, because this dude's coming in. I'm believing what he says. He pulled up in a nice truck. He's talking about getting his kids back. His mom's talking to him now. And I'm believing it. I mean, he's speaking from the heart. You could tell there's some authenticity to this. I'm like, okay. I'm starting to see it, and I keep noticing. Every time, it's God. It's these 12 steps that they're talking about. But mainly, it's everything that I keep hearing is God, 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 God. One guy changed me. He said, man, look. He said, I don't know what you got going on. I don't know if you know God. He said, I don't know if you believe in God. He said, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to try this for me. He said, I want you, before you go to bed at night, I want you to take your sandals off, and I want you to slide them up under your bed, okay? When you get up in the morning, you hit your knees to get them sandals out, because I didn't know how to pray. Your boy ain't never really prayed anything since he was made to pray. He said, when you're down there, just thank Him. Just talk to Him. Just tell Him your name. Tell Him to reveal Himself to you, right? And I'm telling you, bro, like, at that moment, my life changed. It was a road to Damascus moment for me. I had one of those moments, man. When I hit my knees, that something was different. Something, and it's as real as the chairs we're sitting in. Like, oh, this is the moment. He's been knowing about this moment, but this is the moment I've been waiting for. And I had no idea what was going on.
He was right there waiting, wasn't he?
Yeah, waiting. I still don't know what's going on at the time, right? This is all new to me. I'm coming out of a dark world. I don't know anything about this Jesus stuff. But I tell you, He met me right there. And everything was different. Now, I've had to detox and for several times. You know, I mean, you've heard the story about when I come home from my trip from Tennessee and stuff like that. And there's been other times where you ain't got the money and you just fall into it. Bro, it was like I was never on drugs before. Now, they medicate you just a little bit, but still. I'm watching other people, man. They going through hard. And I'm like, I got a whole new peace about me. I don't know what it is. So I go through that, and I go through the detox, and on to Pecan Haven. I go. And about this time, I'm clean out, and look, I want to know more about this God that I keep hearing these testimonies about. And I want to know, like, I'm all aboard, right? Still don't know nothing. Still don't know a scripture, how to read the Bible, because, I mean, you know, when you're in addiction, I've had the Bible. I've used it for a centerpiece to impress the in-laws, or
a coaster for your coffee, or
coaster
your beer,
for the coffee, a pillow in jail, all kinds of stuff. Never for the sole purpose. But, man, I met a godsend there. And you mentioned him before, right? Brian Rucker. Didn't know me from Adam, and he's going to tell you, he thought I was full of crap. I had a little man bun ponytail, right? I was about 160 pounds soaking wet.
had this little bang thing going on. I probably looked full of crap, but I mean, I didn't care. And I just wanted to hear it. And I had a great counselor there, Miss Pam, who was God-centered. I mean, there's something special about Pecan Haven at that time. And Brian broke down, he shared the gospel with me, right? The game changer, right? And I always joke, he has the HBSV version of the gospel. That's the homeboy street version. You know, because my boy's from the projects of Houston. Yeah. And so but he did. But I tell you what, it made sense to me. Like, he become all thing. Like, he broke it down into a way like, okay, I can get this stuff. And once he shared that gospel, man, I went and jumped in that pond. June 6, 2019, still remember it like it was yesterday. I gave my life to Christ, and watch out, right?
And you know, with somebody like Brian, I had never met him before. He was the spiritual leader at the retreat that we talked about. I can only imagine that at that time in his life, and I pray we're able, God, please let it work out to where we can get him on here. Yeah. Another powerful testimony like yours. But he has that ability, and he and I talked about that when we were talking earlier for the podcast. See, he has that ability to connect with people like you in that moment. And that is, to me, that is such a powerful gift of God for somebody like him to have that gift and be willing to use it. And everybody jokes about Brian, that he doesn't like people. I don't think it's that Brian doesn't like people. It's just Brian's personality. It's how he comes across.
Here's what Brian, right? Brian loves people. But Brian loves you so much, he's going to tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear.
Yeah,
right?
you better have really thick skin.
And that's what we need that, right?
Exactly.
Right. We don't need all this affirmation, prosperity gospel that's going around, right? We need some real, true, authentic Christian man. That's what Brian is. And if people get in their feelings, but man, you needed to hear it.
So you hit the water.
I hit the water. And man, life changing. You talk about freeness. So I walked out, man, and I just wanted to know more. And I kind of attached to Brian. Brian's still thinking I'm, full of it at the time, but I don't care. I was on his coattail, and he didn't know it. So I went through Pecan Haven, become, cabin leader, stuff like that. But I was just really wanting to know who Jesus was. So I made a decision then. And it was a decision coming from my counselors, right? Derek's decision landed him into an inpatient rehab. Derek's decisions for 32 years of his life ruined every relationship, every marriage, divorce. I mean, everything. Ruined it. Ruined people's lives, got them addicted. So Derek's decisions weren't working no more. So I said, guess what? And this is a guy more like, my will is your will now. So I am turning it over to you. And that's what I did. So sitting there, I was always planning on coming back home down south, but God had different plans for me. And went to my counselor. She goes, "No, you're going to Awaken 514. I'm calling Kyle Smith." I was like, well, maybe I wanted to go to Brian. Brian had some. Nope, you're going to Awaken 514. I said, yes, ma'am. You know what? I made a promise that I ain't making no more decisions. So whatever you say, I'm doing. And so I met with Kyle. Kyle Smith is one of the godsends, man, that I am so grateful for. He gave me a chance in the Awaken 514 Recovery Home Program, which has been an impactful program in this community for so many years. It's where Brian Rucker come through. It's where Kyle Smith himself come through, Randall Greer, just so many predominant, Richard Bass.
Really? All those guys came through there?
All these guys came through the
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just great program. And what's so great about it is it's not just a sober home, right? It's a program. We're going to hold you accountable. If you ain't about it, there's other places you can go. And that's what I needed, right? Because Derek was very manipulative, still very manipulative and stuff like that. So I went on in there, man, humble. I was just ready to see what God had for me, right? I didn't know any scripture or anything. I was all in. I was leaving everything behind, my friends, everything. Like I was focused on one sole purpose, and that was getting to know who Jesus was. And this church changed my life. And let me tell you what it was, John. You've kind of, just us talking, you've hit it. There wasn't no scripture, there wasn't no preaching. There wasn't nobody taking a Bible and hit me over the head with it. It was love. Never experienced it like this. We come out of that lifestyle and, you thinking that by the time you get out of all that, that you're too far gone to be saved, that you're going to be rejected for the rest of your life, that you have a label over you that you're an addict forever. You walk in the doors of WFR Church at Celebrate Recovery, and it's like almost uncomfortable, the love that you people hugging, asking your name, 300, 400 people on a Friday night that's just like me, right? Coming out of prison and addiction and everything else, worshiping Jesus, asking you how your day's been. Man, it's game changer.
But nobody judging you.
Nobody. No people coming in off of a relapse and
Hey man, what are you in here for?
right,
It wasn't none of that.
No.
That's
It's
the
special.
power.
And it don't just go through the Celebrate Recovery ministry. It's the whole church, or elders, or staff, or the preacher. Man, love you like you don't have a label. You're not an addict. No, you're a family. Man, Robert Abels and Paul Stevens and David Bromley, and the list goes on and on. Mike Kellett. They love you. They care. They truly care. Man, and it was life-changing for me. So I just started taking it one day at a time. I said, I don't know, God, but I have found a place. So I started, man. I just started trying to do everything I could, John. I just wanted to be a productive member of society, one who loved Jesus, and that's exactly what I began to do, right? My first job was on the back of a garbage truck. $7 an hour in the rain, but I said, you know what? I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. I'm going to not honor anybody else. I'm not doing this for him. I'm going to do this for God, because guess what? I'm making an honest living for the first time since I was at the restaurant. There was lying, cheating. I mean, it's been years. And I guess looking back, that humility and just being grateful in that moment led me to getting on a weed eater in the middle of July in Louisiana. And that's not fun for most people. For me, it was great.
It's hot.
It's hot. But man, I just remember, I said, man, you know what? I'm going to be the best weed eater this company's ever seen. I'm just going to honor God. And that led to getting on a promotion at Bumper to Bumper, Parts Warehouse, through a temp agency. I remember sitting in there, man, and I just started working my way up through the temp agency. At this time, Kyle's kind of noticing some things. He's asking me to be a house manager in Awaken 514. So I'm like, wow, I couldn't manage my life 3 months ago, but sure, whatever it takes, whatever you need, bro. So I'm managing the house now, and they're putting me up for promotions and at Bumper to Bumper. And I remember, man, looking back, I was like, they said, look, Derek, we want to put you over shipping. And I said, I have to pray about that. I mean, this is a big increase in pay. You know, any time of the time of my life, looking back, man, I'd jumped on that in a heartbeat.
Right.
You know, getting more pay. And we all chasing that title too, right? In the world, it's not, your identity's attached to who you are and your job, stuff like that. But something, this Holy Spirit now, I know these things now, but something inside of me said, no, man, you need to go home and pray on this. So I went home that night and I started praying, and he revealed pretty clear to me, like, Derek, what are you here for? Are you here to be a shipping supervisor, or are you here for me? So if I'd have took that job, man, I'd have had to pass up on Celebrate Recovery meetings. I wouldn't have been able to be there for my guys in my house that I was there for. So I went in that next day and I humbly declined their offer. It shocked them, but man, that was a
Perfect example of just because a door opens doesn't mean you're supposed to walk through it.
absolutely. You got to see. I have to use this, right? Because I'm very prideful. Like I got to say, is this benefiting Derek, or is this benefiting the kingdom? Because so often, like they're so fine. Look at what the enemy did to Jesus. He took scripture to him. He's tempting him, right? So I really, I've learned through my mentors of Bromley and Robert Abels, Paul, all them. Of course Rucker and Kyle. I've go through everything to them. Stop, pause, and let's think about this. Who's it glorifying? Who's it benefit? And I've kind of used that going forward. So I think that decision, but see, God was also working in that, like he was seeing, right? Who is he serving? Is he serving himself now? Is he serving me?
Right.
Because right after that, who comes calling is Kyle. Kyle sits me down and says, Derek, what do you want to do the rest of your life? I said, well, sir, it ain't working at Bumper to Bumper. I said, whatever it is, I want it to be involved with Jesus. And he said, well, look, it ain't going to be much, but I've been looking for somebody to direct the Awakening program. I need to step out. He's running CR at the time. He's the ministry leader. He's our predecessor. I need to step out, and I'd like you to direct it, be the intake director, stuff like that. For something like that, I didn't think twice about it. I said, this is my mentor. Of course, it was a huge pay cut, but that's okay, because, man, when you're working for Kingdom,
He's not going to let you starve to death.
not at all. And boy, did he show that, right? Talk about providing, and just every instance, so many times in my life, I'd come home and there'd be an envelope on the kitchen table from an aunt that I ain't talked to in years, and it would $100.
I'm so proud of you.
Right. Like, it's just the way God is, man. It's just amazing. So life's taken off, man. I mean, I'm not even a year clean, John, and God is just, the more you seek, the more you find, right? And I'm truly just trying to get out of myself and seek who he is, man. Celebrate Recovery has just been that tool that he has used in so much of my life, right? The ministry is just so powerful. It's not just for addicts, is what I love. It's for everybody, because there's not a person listening to this, or a person that walks in church, a person on the street that isn't a sinner and doesn't struggle.
Exactly.
And that's what we do at CR. Every hurt, habit, or hang up, man. And it's just so, it's real church to me. You know, looking back, it's real church. It's authenticity. It's vulnerability. You open up. Ain't nobody scared to get on that podium and talk about their struggles, right? Because in every pain that we have, God has a purpose out of it. But we get so caught up in the church life that we're supposed to be some self-righteous or so perfect, man. We can't help nobody like that. And that's what's so impactful about CR. That's for me. Like, I could be real here and it's still church. Like, we get to talk Jesus, but we get to talk realness. We get to go in these small groups and share about our week's been, how bad our week's been. But it's all connection, and it's love and brothers, you know, getting step studies and work these 12 steps and really get to the root of our problem so we can see the enemy coming now, you know. But it's been life-changing for me. So, of course, CR has also brought another thing to my life, so I don't recommend this at all. But I remember one Friday night, I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting next to my buddy, and there's this girl up there. And she's beautiful, of course. But the love of Jesus, and the way she talked about Jesus and watching her and stuff, I told my buddy, I said, man, look, I'm going to marry me a girl like that one day. And her name was Kayla Benz. And I said, I am going to marry one like that. Well, God has a sense of humor, right? He says, okay, we'll see that. So a little on down the road, me and Kayla start talking a little bit through a acquaintance. Actually, it was through an incident that happened. She was a leader in the women's side and stuff like that. Needed my advice on something, and I asked her for a haircut. You know, it was kind of looking back my way. I had the man bun going on at the time, so I needed a woman's touch. And that was the start of what is now a 2-year marriage.
That's awesome.
I married the one that I said I'm gonna marry a woman like that, and God
you
provided.
did.
I did, and she is in my phone now as answered prayers. So, Celebrate Recovery also is where I met my wife, and now I'm actually the director of Celebrate Recovery, John, which is, I still can't believe I'm telling you this. I pinch myself. Like, I still think David and all of them up here was insane when they thought about it, but man, it just goes to show you, you can't draw up what God has in store for you.
No.
And not only am I the director, right, of Celebrate Recovery, I'm the director with Brian Rucker, who is my mentor, my friend, the guy who shared the gospel with me.
The shirt tail that you wouldn't let go of?
No. And now I get to sit in the same office as him, right across the hall. We get to do life together. Like, God is just amazing, John. Like, what he can do and how he can do it. To get to work with my best friend and mentor now.
And just so people know, earlier, Brian had some really good things to say about Derek and what you do to help him now in his ministry here. So that holding on to that shirt tail or coat tail, so to speak, when you guys first met, and you weren't going to let go of that. Now you're able to repay that. You're able to work with him and to help him now. That, to me, that's amazing.
Right.
And then on top of that, tell us about your baby.
Okay,
child.
so yeah, absolutely. So it's been a rough year, right? So a rough year and a great year altogether, right? The way God works. Look at, like I'm sitting on the other side of the storm. So just because you come to Jesus doesn't mean everything's going to be okay.
Doesn't mean it's smooth
Right?
waters.
Don't mean it's rainbows and pink unicorns. So me and my wife, we were trying Michaela. She's just I just love her to death, man. I can't tell y'all guys. Behind every good man is an awesome woman.
You ain't a kid.
And she is, I'm telling you, she's a godsend, right? If I could have wrote down on a piece of paper in rehab my attributes of a woman that I want in a godly wife, here she is, and I got her now. So
And mine's got a switch whipping me into
yeah,
shape.
well, she got it. She keeps it too. But man, so we great marriage and stuff. So we want to start trying to have a child, and it actually started, John. The first miscarriage was on our retreat
Oh, really?
around that time.
Really?
Nope, scratch that. It was on my retreat. Sorry, it wasn't that. So we go through and we have a first miscarriage, and that was pretty rough. Here we are, we all excited, stuff like that. So we get through that, and I know she took it a lot. I mean, I couldn't imagine being the woman in that. You're carrying the baby, and it's a piece of you, and then all of a sudden. But so we go through a miscarriage. We'll get pregnant again. We go through another miscarriage. So it's like at this point we're like, maybe it's just not our time. Maybe we need to quit, back up, and then we become pregnant with Scout, and we can't enjoy it. We can't enjoy it because of the past,
Scared to death,
Scared,
on
man,
edge.
like
I mean, every little thing you're worried.
waiting for
yeah.
to not hear a heartbeat.
Right.
That's kind of how we're living. But we're making it, right? We're getting there, and we're making it. We're getting up to 6 months. We're getting up. She's been pregnant for 7 months, and everything's looking good. Well, this past July, we go on a vacation. We go see some family. We come back. And we get back, and we're still, September 15th would have been Scout's due date. And we're in July. So we're good 2 months, well before it. We get to the doctor, and there's complications. Well, Scout is not growing anymore. So he's at 29 weeks. He's only at the growth of 24 weeks. Kayla's placenta is starting to fail. So we go from a vacation, and everything's great. We get back, and we're in the hospital. So they're monitoring the baby. They're thinking everything's going to be okay. They send us home. We go back on that Friday for a checkup, July 15th, 2022. And the doctor says, we're having a baby today. So here we are again, full of anxiety, right? Just coming off 2 miscarriages, and we're having a baby 9 weeks early. And my baby boy was born. He was born 1 pound, 13 ounces. July 15th, and I just tell you, man, I was just excited, but also nervous. I mean, he fits in the palm of your hands. We still have an uphill battle. Kayla's still going through it. We don't even know if he's gonna make it, what's gonna happen, stuff like that, but he did. He's
something
a
else.
stud. He's a stud. My
I've seen
baby
the
boy
pictures.
is, he's going strong. He's 14 pounds now. He is, everything God has just showed us that he is in control. Them 47 days in the NICU, right? That's how long he was in there. Were rough. They were tough. But I tell you, God did so much, man. So grateful even in the moment of that. Like, he brought me and Kayla's marriage together. He brought people that hadn't been praying, started praying to God. Like, he was working. So I don't know what he has in store for my baby boy, but I know it's big. I know he's got a plan for him, and just so grateful. So we got a little boy. So it's me, Kayla. I got a stepson, Cash, that I just adore, 13 years old. So we're in the mix of both worlds. We got a teenager at home now and a baby, but he is just an awesome young man. So God he's a God of restoration, right? Everything that I've lost, he is now beginning to place back. Man, I get to work at this gorgeous place at WFR. Got to pinch myself every time I walk through them doors, John.
He honors those who honor him.
I'm telling you, I just couldn't imagine like that I'm sitting here today talking to you about it. Like it's just, sometimes I got to pinch myself. I don't believe I deserve it, right? And
That's what makes it that much more special.
I guess, it just I never want to take it for granted. I get to teach here. What? That don't make sense, right? Get to teach. Get to be the ministry leader of Celebrate Recovery, a ministry that has impacted and changed my life. I own now the Awakening Recovery Homes with Brian, right? So we own the recovery home program that we both come through. It's just, we get to spend our lives, God has blessed us to help everybody that we've used to struggle. Like we get to wake up every day and we get to see life, we get to wake up and see life change. Like if you don't believe in God's miracles, come over here to WFR on a Friday night. There's a room full of them, full of rescue. And John, it's just amazing where he could take you. Like everything, like 1 Corinthians 1:27, right? I love it. It's one of my go-to verses. But it's so real, right? It's one of them scriptures that I never could understand the Bible, but now that you read it through the Holy Spirit and your pain, they just come off the page. It says, God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to shame the strong. Like, that's me. Like, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for my addiction. Like, I know you didn't put it on me. I know it's from the enemy. But I know what the enemy meant for evil, you're going to turn it to good, and that's exactly what you're doing. Because if it wasn't for them 14 years, man, I don't think I'd be lost out there in that world. I'd be chasing material things. I wouldn't be chasing the Father. So I could sit here now and just be like, man, I kind of am grateful that, and I never want to say that addiction's good. It's sin and it's dead. But in my personal experience, like, man, it led me to my Savior's feet. It led me, that pain is now used for His glory and purpose. And I try to strive every day, man. First, to try to be the best husband to Kayla. That's my first ministry. Right? She is my first. Scout and Cash, that's my first ministry. But then after that, man, it's just, how can I help? How can I help somebody that struggled with addiction or depression or divorce? I mean, the list goes on and on.
Here's the deal now. You each have someone in your life that when struggle starts or something happens, you can't hide it now.
No.
You're going to know. I mean, that's, and it's just going to be my belief and my prayer that you all never have to struggle with that again anyway. But the thing that Adam Brown always said that to his wife, he said, it just calls my name. He said, it just calls my name. And boy, she stayed with him through the thick and the thin, and it was an amazing book. And when I look back, or when I hear stories like yours, it makes places like WFR, to me, even more special.
Yeah.
Because I didn't come in here with a drug addiction. I didn't come in here with a porn addiction. I didn't come in here as an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. I came in here as a broken Christian. Nobody knew me. Nobody cared.
Right.
John Garrett, we don't know who you are. We don't know what you've done. We don't know what you're going through, but we're going to love you through it.
Right.
We're going to worship together. We're going to pray together. We're going to study together. We're going to share our stories together. And we're just going to love each other through this. And I'm going to tell you, man, then I saw where you guys had a couple other guys that have come in from out of state as well. There was one other guy that came from out of state when I came down. He came from Florida. I came from North Carolina. I met him in the parking lot, and he was struggling with giving up his phone. That's all he wanted to talk about was, oh, my job, I can't. And I'm like, well, okay, you knew that before you come. That was part of it. And I think he was one that he actually left the retreat early.
He did.
And I thought to myself, I come too far for that, man.
Right.
You could take my shoes, you could take my towel, my socks, my shirt. I don't care, but I'm not leaving here. I'm here. I'm here for my relationship with my Heavenly Father. And I told the guys when I was coming down, I said, I want to go where nobody knows me.
Right.
I don't want any
and
preconceived.
Look at what come out of that.
Oh man,
you know?
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative of what God's done in your life. These are the stories that I want to tell on the shelter home. Missionaries, addictions, pastors, just your normal Joes. Something a lot of people don't know about us. I know you got to get to go pick up little man. My wife and I married. I was 19, she was 18. I was in the Navy. I had just gone in. We got pregnant 2 months. We got married the month after she graduated high school. Moved to California. And I was an E2. I mean, I didn't make nothing. I mean, it was bad. Anyway, so we got pregnant 2 months after we got married. Our first daughter was born at Balboa Naval Hospital in San Diego. Went all through the pregnancy, heartbeat, nothing. Her mom was out there with us, thank God. I don't know what I would have done. So Danielle was born 4 pounds, I think, 3 pounds something. When she was born, she had what was called trisomy 22 16q. Part of her 16th chromosome had broken off and attached to the 22nd. There was only 6 known cases of what she had in the United States at the time. They didn't know why she was living because typically she was either miscarriage or stillborn. Danielle lived to be, long story short, Danielle lived 5 months. The military transferred us back to West Virginia. I worked at the Naval Reserve Center there so we could be closer to family. Danielle died 5 months old at WVU Medical Center in Morgantown, West Virginia after surgery. Her autopsy report said that what she had could have never been fixed.
Really?
They had, it even said there, they could not believe that Danielle had lived 5 months. I know why, because that little girl healed two broken families.
Yeah. God, she served her purpose.
And mommy's a little ballerina.
Wow.
It's and so, you know, we all have those stories, but to hear, you know, when you all go through that, I can empathize with you. I don't have sympathy for it. Brother, my shoes, I've been in them shoes.
Yeah.
And I got a cousin who had a preemie.
Right.
And he is, Nathan's what, Chad, 6'1"?
That's what I hear, man.
Yeah,
It's like they grew up to be huge.
Yeah, he's you know, good kid. He's another one that of our family that has struggled a little bit with addiction over the years. It had nothing to do with him being preemie or anything.
Yeah.
It was just a story like yours.
It's everywhere, man.
Yeah,
It's everywhere.
It's there.
But there's only one cure.
There is only one cure.
His name's Jesus.
Amen, brother.
And you know, you were going to struggle. You may slip, and it's not okay, and relapse isn't part of recovery. But if you do, you better jump back on, right? Because Jesus is still waiting there. That's what's great about this church, man.
I'm not perfect.
None of us are, right? None of us are. We all fall short every day. That's why we need a Savior.
Exactly. That's why we need.
Right. But He will change you in so many, your outlook on life, the way you view things, the restoration that can take place.
Exactly.
And even if the restoration doesn't take place, because guess what? Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. That's just the truth, man. But when you come close to Jesus, that satisfaction of that, you now know whose you are and who you are in Him, that you're able to get through that without going to use. Right? So anxiety, depression, He covers all. And man, I'm just so grateful. Like, I'm grateful now that, man, so I would not change any of it, John. I could honestly sit here today and tell you, I would not change any of it.
You know, things we've done in our past may not be restored, like you said.
It may not.
But we are restored
That's right.
to our Heavenly Father.
Absolutely.
Through Christ. And
that's
what matters.
That's everything. That's everything.
He's the great healer. He's the Redeemer. He's the restorer of our faith. And regardless of, we still have to suffer the consequences of what we've done in this world to our bodies or even to others.
Absolutely.
However, those things are washed.
Washed clean.
By
I'm
Calvary.
forgiven.
Isn't that amazing? And
Right.
when people can come to that, a lot of people say, "Well, I can never be forgiven for what I've done." No, you're wrong. You're wrong. Then you are belittling
What
what
Jesus
Christ did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can't even fathom. We can watch the Passion and everything like that, but truly can't. Like the lashes and the punishment he took for us. Like, don't let that go to waste. Don't let that go to waste. I can sit here today and he has restored, man. My mom calls me for biblical advice. What? My cousin wants me to be a part of his baptism. My grandma, same way. Cousins, friends. It's all possible just because I said, you know what? Derek, you got to get out the way. You got to get out the way, and you got to let him start taking over. And guess what? If I don't wake up tomorrow and do that, that old thorn in my side, the flesh, the Derek, he's still in there. So it's every day, right? John, and I tell my guys this all the time, like, you better wake up and bear that, pick up your cross. Tell them if you got to, put a little cross outside your door and pick it up as you go outside the door. Because, man, it's an everyday thing, everyday journey.
I'm sure you're like me. There's things in my past that it's almost every morning. It's like, God, why? Please take this thorn from me. Take this memory. I don't want to remember this anymore. I don't want to think about this anymore. But at the same time, I hear him say, but that's how I'm molding you. Mm-hmm. That's who makes you who you are. I don't want you to forget about that because I don't want you to revert back to it again. I want that to always be there. You're forgiven for it. You don't have to, don't dwell on it, but use it to better yourself going forward.
Absolutely. That's why I didn't remove it from Paul, the apostle, It's like, no, my grace is sufficient for you.
Yeah.
I need you to carry that. So.
Just imagine. Just like you said you had your road to Damascus moment. We've all had those. Paul holding the garments of the man who killed Stephen, become one of the greatest advocates and preachers of the gospel that ever walked this earth.
That was so, that's what allowed me to forgive myself. Right? Yeah. Like God's used the Osama bin Laden of his time, right? Persecuting Christians.
Exactly.
And goes on to be the forefront of the early church. Peter was he was rough, old fisherman. Matthew, a tax collector. If he can use them guys, man, what's so different about me? The story of the bleeding lady, in 3 of the Gospels, man, that was me. She suffered 12 years. I suffered 14. I was exiled. Like the scriptures start, like God is still the author of life writing these stories, and we're living them.
I can't tell you, even after becoming a Christian, even during pastoring a church and being in the ministry, of times in your life that you get on your face before God. This is pretty much where I was when I come down here, and I'm praying if I could just touch the hem of your garment.
Yes.
If I could just touch the hem of his garment. Mm-hmm. And basically when I come down here, that's what I was doing. Through the brotherhood of Christ, my brothers through Christ. That's what that weekend was. That weekend gave me that opportunity, I feel, that I was able to reach out.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. I'm so thankful for you guys and what you all do here.
And it goes both ways, you know what I mean? Like, I'm so grateful. I know right where you're at, buddy. I do, man. This place is just special to my heart. God will really have to tug on me to get me out of here. And that's the only way, because I just love it. I love the family. I love the love. The love is unmatched because it's an authentic. It's real brotherly love. It's real forever family love that we have here at WFR Church. I mean, we hold true to our motto. We love God, we love others, and we share Jesus. That's it. Like gospel-centered, baby. Let's talk some Jesus, but let's love one another. You know, we try, scaring people out of hell don't really work.
Mm-mm. You got to love
You got to
them.
love them into heaven. Right? Especially us that come out of a hell on earth. You know, I've seen it all. I was trying to die. I didn't care. That ain't going to work. Too much stuff going to scare me out of hell.
Yeah.
But you love me, and you know what they did here? They love me in heaven.
Yeah.
They didn't preach at me. But
We got about 15 minutes
okay,
because I am not going to keep you from getting little man.
you good.
And I don't want to make anybody have to stay late today waiting on us to get out of the church. So tell us a little bit about your podcast,
Okay.
about that you and Brian are
Me and
starting.
Ruck. Yeah, so it's going to be the Awakening podcast. And, you know, we've been working on this thing for a couple of years, just trying to get it all together, stuff like that. But, man, it's going to be great. It's just going to be kind of like what you do here, right? It's going to be real. It's going to be Jesus. It's going to be testimonies, but we're going to mix in a lot of recovery with it. You know, Ruck, his knowledge, man, he's one of the most sought-after addiction counselors in the area.
Really?
I mean, oh, absolutely.
I can see that.
Oh man, he's just great. So we're just going to be real, man. Have some good guests. I'm not going to allude to none of that right now, but we're going to have some big guests, some big, you know, acquaintances Rucker's met through being on Duck Dynasty, stuff like that. Love to have you guys on here. I mean, just kind of week to week, man. We just want to talk real life. You know, talk to some men at just how Jesus has changed them and incorporate recovery in that. Because here's the deal: we're all in recovery in a sense.
Absolutely. I'll tell you right now, I am.
Right? It's not just drugs or alcohol out there. We have sex addiction, now Facebook addiction, phone addiction, food addiction, codependency, anger. I mean, everybody has a life issue. And, man, just kind of shed some light on that because you said you were broken, right, when you come here. Man, we all broken. We're all broken now, or we're broken at one point, needing someone to put us back together, and that someone's Jesus. So however we can point anybody to Jesus, I think that's what we're all on team for.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So we're going to be rolling that out this year, and so stay tuned for that, man. It's going to be we just love talking Jesus, brother. So
If you guys ever want us to come back, we're all
we're
about it.
going to have y'all in
We're
here.
all about
That's
it.
for sure. That's for sure.
Thanks again, bro.
Yeah, my man. Look, love
you,
y'all.
man. Love
Anytime we can help out, just let us know. You know, I want to have anybody listen or catch this, man. Want to invite, if y'all ever in town, West Monroe, come by WFR, come see us, man. Come check us out on Friday night or Sunday morning.
You won't be disappointed.
I can promise you're going to be felt like you're at home because we just want to love on you and talk to you. If you know anybody that struggles with addiction, man, reach out to us.
Is there a number or email? You know,
Email, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, give us an email and.
You can email me directly here at church, DMcQueen. That's DMCQUEEN at WFRchurch.org. Or you can do Brian. Brian is B Rucker. That's BRUCKER at WFRchurch.org. And man, reach out to us, man. If you got a loved one, you personally that struggle with addiction, man, reach out. You can't do it alone. Ain't none of us can. I still can if I'm not talking to Kyle, Brian, or my elders, man. I still, to this day. But we want to be here for you. We want to love you because there is a way. If he could do it for me, right? If he could do it for you, all of us. He loves us all the same. And there is a way. And the make or break component is authentic Christian community. So, man, anything you need, guys, we're going to reach out. We're here. Services all over. Like Brian's always, he's advocating. Like our CR now is like a concierge, man. If you need anything, like if you're looking for counseling, addiction, treatment, we can help you with that, right? We have connections all over the area. This is a recovery hub, West Monroe. There's like 7 rehabs within a 50-mile radius of us. So it is a very good recovery community. Anyone struggling with addiction or anything like, we have, like I said, we own now the Awaken and Recovery Homes, which is a in-depth program, that next step out of rehab that help men, you know, develop their relationship with Jesus Christ and obtain a successful member of society, you know. So anything, we're here, man. We love to help.
WFR, if you want to go to their live stream, you can go to YouTube and look up Whites Ferry Road or WFR live stream, and you can do it that way. If you're on Facebook, I know that they do the live stream through Facebook as well.
Yep.
They have the peak of the week.
Yes, sir.
Also, if you're a truck driver, if you're a salesman and you travel a lot, or if you listen to podcasts and you're always looking for something inspirational, man, I have got to say that the Unashamed podcast.
Absolutely.
You cannot go wrong. It's awesome. It's biblical. It's funny. And listen,
They're always good for a good laugh.
They're always in for a good laugh. And listen, it's authentic. You don't get any more authentic than that.
Real as it gets.
It's real, and you're not going to get anything. It's a discussion Bible study.
Right.
About guys who tell you about the poor old Jace, some of the stuff. I don't ever want to go anywhere with him because there's always something happening.
He's full of it, man, I'll tell you.
But anyway, those guys are awesome. And they've got the movie about Phil the Blind coming out shortly, and they're starting to talk about some of that, and you'll get some of that information on the podcast as well. Yeah. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining us for this podcast, and we're looking forward to what we can bring you in the future. And Derek, thanks again, man.
Oh,
It was my pleasure.
Look, my honor to be here. I love you. Thank you for
too,
that.
brother. Hey, thanks for joining us on The Shelter Hole. We'll see you in the next one.
Love you guys.